The GAZAP Hope and Healing Project brings you this webinar offering guidance on coping with the loss of a loved one during the pandemic. Many individuals have experienced loss of a loved one during the pandemic, which can be particularly difficult due to a number of factors. I'm a crisis counselor for the GAZAP Hope and Healing Project team. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, with assistance through a federal grant, we're providing short-term group and individual crisis counseling services to provide New Jersey residents with support, skills, and resources. We will begin by defining grief. Grief is a normal response to loss. There are 5 well-known stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Denial is shown when we have a hard time accepting the loss. It can look like denying the news or feeling numb. The next stage of anger can be misplaced feelings and frustration associated with the loss. During the bargaining stage, we may wonder, what if this, or if only that? And during the depression stage, we may begin to accept what has happened, and we may begin feeling the loss more strongly than before. Finally, in the acceptance stage, we begin to come to terms with the reality of our situation. Think back on your own process of grief. Do you recognize moments where you're experiencing the stage of denial? What about the stage of anger or bargaining? What stage or stages are you at right now? Although these stages are a useful way to understand grief, you should know that you do not need to go through each of these stages to heal, and these stages may not be in the same order listed above. Remember, there is no expected timeline for grief. Everyone's experiences are different, especially with the changes brought on by the pandemic. Due to the isolating nature of the pandemic, your experience of losing a loved one may be different than in typical times. You may not be able to be with a loved one when they pass away, or you may not be able to mourn someone's death in person with others. Take a moment and reflect. What other ways has the pandemic impacted your grieving process? Despite these differences, there are still ways that you can be within the socially distanced restrictions and still find support. We will explore options on how to connect with others, how to create memories, and how to ask for further help when you need it. Despite the restrictions imposed by COVID, there are still ways you can connect with others. Some suggestions on how to do that are video calling friends and family, sharing stories or pictures, planning a virtual meetup through online platforms, and socially distant meetings in person. Another major change in the grieving process brought about by COVID-19 is missing the memories created by connecting with friends and family after a loss. COVID-19 has made it more difficult for us to come together with family and friends in order to mourn and commemorate loved ones who have passed. Some ways to reflect and celebrate the lives of deceased loved ones is by collaborating with others to gather images and memories and participating in activity to remember your loved one, like planting a tree or cooking a meal that was special to both of you. After reviewing this information, you may be wondering, when do I know that I need to seek out more support? If the pain of loss is so constant and strong that you have difficulty completing your daily routine, or if you think you may benefit from additional emotional support, you may want to consider seeking out further services. Even in pre-pandemic times, people would face difficulty with coping with the loss of a loved one. These feelings are completely normal and can be worsened by the isolation brought about by the pandemic. If you feel you are in need of more support, some ways to seek it out are utilizing sources of support like this webinar, seeking out mental health services or hotlines. Some may find support in their faith. Finally, seeking out support groups online to find people who are having similar experiences can often help people cope with loss. In the next slide, I will review some resources for further support, which you are welcome to save or screenshot. Some recommended sources for further support are your College Crisis Counseling Center, the hotlines offered by GAZAP and Hope and Healing, and the SAMHSA National Helpline. To finish off, I want to offer you some friendly reminders. Be kind to yourself. Your feelings are normal. You are not alone. Be patient with yourself. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for help and support.